Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, yes, indeed, those two gentlemen join us this morning to shed light on some of these policies that you've seen, the possible implications on you, how it affects your business, basically. So they are here to break it down for us. They are those who should know what these policies will mean. Here in Abuja studio, we've got Jonathan Aremu, who is a professor of international economic relations, the former acting vice chancellor for Covenant University, and also former acting assistant director of research in the CBN. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today, sir.
Thank you very much, Chamberlain.
Well, first of all, people use the words interchangeably: floating of the naira, devaluation.
Yeah.
They say it means two different things, some people.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, what does that mean?
Yeah, you are correct that the two are not the same thing. Devaluation is a policy statement. It's a policy to reduce the value of a domestic currency so as to realign it with what they think should be right. Whereas depreciation is allowing the market forces to determine what the value should be. So while the policy side can actually be realigned to the market, at times it may not be. And over time in Nigeria, you discover that the policy aspect of devaluation in Nigeria has not actually been in line with the market-determined rate. And that is actually where the confusion comes from. Depreciation is aligned the market forces. Devaluation is a policy of the government.
So what did we have this time out with the naira?
What we are having now appears to be depreciation, allow the market forces to determine. But you see, again, one may need to question that, because should we have a double exchange rate in which one of it is about 750, another one official rate is 400 and something, and then there's a gap of over 300? Is that not too much? And then you now say that you allow the market forces, and then the market forces now say it's going to be 700 and something. Obviously. So there cannot be a sort of synchronization or handshake in that area.
So to the extent that we have those two windows,
yeah,
can we then say we have not?
Yes, you cannot say that the market is the one that is determining the thing now, because obviously the kind of shadow between the official and the market determined rate that will have been permitted before has not been allowed to be interplay, and then that is why we are having what we are having. So to me, I think as time goes on, everything will play out.
If what the unification?
Yeah, there can be unification.
But what kind of possible impacts will it have either way?
Oh, obviously it's clear. The possible impact is clear to everybody. Why? Because number one, for the manufacturing sector and other business agents in Nigeria that have been having opportunity to have access to official rate, they can no longer have it. And therefore that will jack up the production cost, which to this time may not be in a good interest of the tradables within Nigeria and outside Nigeria to other African countries, now that we are entering African continental free trade area. So it may not be something that may be of something of interest, but if we allow the thing to go ahead, and then the final version is a total unification of these two bands, then obviously that problem will go, but it can take time.
Well, some people will say that, yes, indeed, it might take a bit of time, but, you know, do you ever see a situation whereby the parallel market and, you know, the main market, the official market will ever come together? Because people also still note that when they go abroad, the official rate, I mean, from where you get to buy from the BDCs, is usually slightly higher than the official rate. So do you think that will ever happen?
Thank you, madam. You see, the unification will never be 100%. You go to some countries, you discover that the official exchange rate is a little bit lower than the market. Why? Because the market cannot always wait for the official to determine their own. The market is on the spot. The official is through some processes. So that small gap is there. But what we are saying in Nigeria is that our own gap was too much and allowed for rent seeking. For God's sake, people that have access to official exchange rate can just continue buy dollar and sell in the market. And that's what the former governor of CBN was saying, that the cheapest way to be able to make money is just to have access to it officially and then sell in the black market, which to me, it has been disturbing the economy. It's a rent-seeking type. It's never allowed. Just as you read my CV, I was acting as the head of research in CBN. This has never happened. This is not.
Isn't that a type of subsidy when you have that other exchange to ensure that you try and rein in those forces so that it doesn't spiral out of control for the average man out there?
You're saying what again?
Isn't that a type of subsidy?
A type of subsidy? You see, as an economist, when you say subsidy, in the economy, it doesn't sink well in microeconomics. Why? Because if I'm to subsidize your consumption, alternatively, I'm to give you money for what I'm subsidizing, what will you prefer? You prefer the money. Because you're in different curve. The combination of your consumption will be different from what I'm subsidizing. So that is why economies, in microeconomic principles, will never support subsidy. Economy will support, instead of subsidizing and telling people to go and consume something that is cheap, if they have been given the money, they may use the money for something else, which may benefit them. If you are subsidizing a particular product, but I wanted to consume something else, you are forcing me to consume something I would not have liked to consume.
Yeah, but some people will say...
I'm coming, madam.
Okay.
So that's the area in which subsidy at times will not be something interesting in economics. So, because when people have the choice of deciding their own different curve, a combination of consumption, this plus this is what I would like to consume. But you are saying this and this is what you must consume to be able to enjoy a preferential price. And that's the issue.
Yeah, but I think we're looking more at subsidy for production, because you're talking about manufacturers.
Excellent.
And you know, the fact that they were getting this monies at the official exchange rate, and now it's going to jack up production costs, which eventually will affect the end consumer. How do you think that this is going to affect them, in the long run?
Yes, there are quite a lot of ways in which you can actually assist production, because we need to be able to assist production to be able to make the economy can compete. Quite a lot of numerous ways. The investment climate has to be right. Other things have to be there. But there are certain things which, if you don't leave to the market to determine, will not be okay. The manufacturers, I was listening to the news in which I just heard that as much as how much billion was spent on generating cost of production in terms of power. That one is not. Perhaps if the light is okay and they did not spend that kind of money, they will not be asking that you have to subsidize the naira you are giving, the exchange rate you are giving them. So, but quite a lot of other things which government may have to do is not being done. The transportation costs, making sure that the business environment is quite very nice. They need to take attention. So it's a matter of responsibility, responding to ability, both in the part of the government as well as in the part of the private sector. And that's where the word responsibility comes.
In fact, that also leads us to today, the government and Labour are expected to continue their meeting about these few subsidy matters.
Yes.
So they've got a list of demands, which we'll take a look at as we progress. But give us your impression of the policies that this government has put in place so far. I know this is early days, but from your understanding of what they're doing, are they doing the right things? Are they doing so many things at the same time? Are they placing the cart before the horse?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I think you are putting me on a very difficult something to say that whether they are doing the right thing or not. Well, let me say this one. I think before President Buhari won the election, he said that when it comes in, subsidy will be off. Now, the next question will be how? Because the how is very important. This is something people have enjoyed over the years. It has become a serious problem. And not only that, what process, particularly what we put in place to be able to make sure that people's life, the standard of living, will not just shrink. Everybody is affected. Everyone, including me sitting here. So I think that in making that kind of decision, before even he comes in, I believe he must have been working on the essential palliative that will come. And that is what the Labour wanted to hear now. Labour is no longer arguing that you continue to subsidize fuel. But what they are saying is that what do we do because people are suffering? And if the government say the decision will be, when he comes in, he's going to decide, he should actually let us know what he has in store. So that's coming back to the word I used before, responsibility, responding to ability. The ability for you to be able to say you want to do this, you actually be correspondent to ability to be able to do it appropriate way so that people will not actually be affected negatively.
So what I would like to know is in terms of just begin off Chamberlain's question as to whether or not, government has, because some people say quite a number of things have happened almost simultaneously. We've removed fuel subsidy, Naira has been floated, leading to a depreciation. Now, government is saying that they have lifted restriction on domiciliary accounts. You can withdraw as much as $10,000. Is this even going to allow, because what we are looking for is for dollars to come into the economy, forex to come into the. So when you say people can remove as much as $10,000, wouldn't we be seeing a flight of capital from our? I mean, these are all considerations. But I think the key question is: do you think that we have we're giving the economy too many pills to swallow at the same time?
Okay, thank you for saying too many pills. But let me say this: that when you allow money to come in, and then you put in stringent measures that will not allow the money to go out, people will not bring it again if you don't bring more inside. Right? So the policy to allow people to be able to bring money in and take it out, create an environment for money to flow in and out. So it is the net flow now that matters. Right? See, because previously, if you now say, where any money that's gone, you can't take it out. People say, that's not an environment where I should take my money to. Right? Now, on the issue of so many policies coming at the same time, Madam, I think that what we need to look at is the process to get them done. It is not how long you are traveling on wrong road that matters, but is that the right direction to travel? Just last week, a professor from Cameroon, we were in a meeting, African Union meeting, on sustainable development for the continent. And he told me during the tea break, he said, Nigeria is making Cameroon to suffer. I said, why? He said, the fuel subsidy, price of fuel has gone up. How do you think I will feel? Should we be subsidizing Cameroon? You see, substantial amount of our fuel go outside the border. Well, that may be our problem again. Who are the people at the border that should check this? That is why I use the word responsibility. People, organizations, MDs that are in charge of doing their work, to allow things to work.
Because now they're blaming the subsidy on that particular scenario, which many people here think, look, can that actually be a valid reason? Because they say we're subsidizing.
Let me say this one. When we were arguing for the African Continental Free Trade Area, I'm one of those who said that we have to go into it. Even at the time, government said no. I said no. And we have to go around the country to be able to sensitize the country. Myself and Ambassador Osakwe, who was the DG of NOTN. And we got to a particular zone in the country. And a very big officer of the government was saying that our border is porous. And I say, what do you want? What are you doing there? You have to look at this thing. We have to do our jobs.
So subsidy is one. Just
so
a moment.
What I'm saying is that
subsidy is one.
If substantial trailers are leaving the country, for the fuel we are subsidizing in Nigeria, should we be fueling other countries?
Yeah, so that's one. Fuel subsidy removal is one. Floating the Naira is another. At the official window now, we know that Naira is now about 650 thereabout.
Yeah.
Now, if that is the case, we know that in a short while, the price of petrol is going to go up again. That's what we know. So that's why people are asking. And then we also have heard that the price of electricity tariff is going to go up as well. Do you think that we're introducing too many pills at the same time?
That's back to the question. That is what I'm saying, that the government that is doing this one must make sure that he has enough palliative to be able to support it. Because you know the implication of all this, a lot of policies that we actually jack up price. Segment this into medium and long term to make sure even before they get to the point in which the economy is stabilized.
All right, we'll take a look at those palliatives much later, but probably when we go to Lagos, Ayo has got another guest right there. Ayo.
Oji Udemezue is here with me. He is a financial and economic analyst here in Lagos. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
It would seem like, from the conversation we've had so far, everything revolves around the energy sector. Electricity, CNG conversation, subsidy removal, and all of that. So I'm going to ask you my first question. Are we doing too much at the same time, particularly within the energy sector?
Yes, I think there's no politics around it. The president is trying to show that he actually is pro-reform, all right? And that is quite positive for the economy, and that is going to also make the international community believe that Nigeria is actually now willing to reform. And I think even the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, is also now almost like applauding Nigeria for taking these steps. But the truth is that so much is being done at the same time. They are not properly being timed. The peel of subsidy removal hasn't actually gone in while the other ones are being rolled out. So I think the answer is yes. We're taking too much at the same time, and all the suffering, the untold hardship is quite telling on Nigerians. There's no doubt about that. People are crying every single day. Even on the personal note, I'm sure you receive more requests now from the village, from family and so on, for support. People are dying, people are crying, people are getting depressed. So in any case, all these activities going on are the things that we have all said Nigeria must do to come out from where we are right now. They must be done. But in economic policy, you must also be sure things are properly timed so you don't get people left much, much worse off than you meet them. Yes, you can always say that in the medium to long term, we'll all be fine. But what if people have died before that time? So for me, subsidy removal is a good step, but it was forced by, for me, a careless speech made by the president. I'm sorry to say that, but that speech was not called for on that inauguration day. Subsidy is gone. It was a bit careless without having a cabinet, advisors, a minister to sit down. And even though we know it was going to go even a month away from then, but must you also have gone by that month? Because what I keep saying is that the Nigerian leaders always push all the responsibility to suffer, to adjust, to understand to Nigerians. And they do little or nothing to cut down the waste, excesses, and the largesse that we find our government people enjoying in this country. So there's no adjustment by those in government, but they want the masses to keep adjusting. And that's why we've said, why wouldn't you have done something to show that we can trust you, that the savings from the removal of the subsidy, will be used justiciably for the nation?
Just a second on that same issue. I'm a little confused because, going by what you just said now, when the president said subsidy is gone, it wasn't the first thing he said. He said, look, the law has already made some things clear. The appropriation law already says there is no provision for subsidy.
After June.
What that means is that there is no subsidy any longer. That is a conclusion. It's like saying this plus this equals subsidy is gone. That's so when you say it was a careless statement, I'm wondering where that is
on that particular day, because we're not yet in the government utterances can change the dynamics of things.
Subsidy had been removed before the president came into office. Mr. Fashola said the same thing before he left cabinet, that subsidy had been removed. There is no subsidy any longer. I wonder why that didn't
Beginning
go viral.
From when, sir? It was going to start from second half of the year. 1 month means a lot in policy making in government.
Okay.
The government had just taken over, and the way to welcome welcome themselves to government is to say subsidy is gone. If you remember, that same night, and then it wasn't in the morning, prices began to go out of the roof. It's just that Nigeria is actually a very peaceful country. People love their lives. People don't want to protest. People accept anything thrown at us. I was in Kenya in March, throughout March, for a capacity building exercise. All right? And I remember throughout that March, my program, the training program I went for, was disrupted a number of times because the opposition party, I think Odinga, was constantly on the street on what they called a mass protest. What were Kenyans protesting about? That cost of living was very high,
so
prices had gone up.
The issue you are raising is that of communicating the ideal.
That's the point I'm making.
Not that it was out of place.
To remove subsidy is something we've always talked about. It needed to be done.
Okay.
But in doing it, government must be sensitive. Policy making is not just mathematics. You add things up. There must be sensitivity in how the nation will take whatever policy you're coming up with, and how it will particularly affect the life of people who are already damaged by high prices, food prices and everything, caused by global food crisis and so on. And you done that carelessly on us.
All of that is insensitive. I would like you to refrain from the use of the word careless, because it was something that there was a process that was on. And you said it is something that needs to be done. There is never a good time to take out subsidy. We have tried it since 2012.
I know. So it's good to force the process. But in forcing the process, what have you done to the people you are leading? In government policy making, we know the right things to do, right? It's good to do them. But do you also care about, are you aware, we don't have data in this country. Do you know that between then and now, people that have died carelessly, people that have lost their jobs carelessly, we have grown thick skins. It doesn't matter to us anymore. What matters is that we are comfortable in the government house, announcing whatever we want to announce.
Let's make some progress, because as you have said, it's good to force decisions, but then no one ever really knows, how this thing will go. So let's make some progress now and talk about some palliatives of sorts. The House of Representatives made some proposals about palliatives, but the concern that I have is that of partnerships. The federal government and the Labour are having a meeting today. I think it was last week, the president met with governors, asking them to find a way to cushion the effect of these, policies, this approach of government on their people, so that things don't get any worse for them than it already is. What kind of partnership, what kind of intervention would you be suggesting to governors now in the 36 states of the Federation to help cushion the effect of this policy that everyone, including yourself and several other economists, agree are good things to happen? Okay,
good. I'm going to give a few suggestions. But, like I said earlier, why I said is this decision ought to have happened. These engagements ought to have happened. These partnerships ought to have been created to show that you really care about. That's the point I'm making. For goodness sake, nobody's doubting whether Nigeria needed to remove the subsidy. It was a big scam. It was a big waste. It was a big hemorrhage on our fiscal position in this country. So by all means, we needed it removed. But must we do that insensitively? Now, going forward, the immediate, because talking about palliative, way forward, there are some immediate, short-term, medium to long-term policies that will help us, get this right in this country. Nigeria is a blessed and big country. For now, I think we must bring in some incomes policy initiatives that will help. Usually, these days, we talk about fiscal policy, monetary policy, in trying to guide the economy towards the path of growth, inclusive growth and development. But now we have to use income policy that normally comes up when you have this kind of crisis. Every state government and the federal government must sit down and find out whatever gains we're getting from the already suddenly removed subsidy. How much can we apply in helping the workers transit to work? Even
this is the states now.
Yeah, the states now. Okay. Even though I hear some people are trying to come up with a 3-day work week or 4-day work week, but they have to immediately announce some kind of allowance, non-taxable allowance, that may be called, is even easy, transport allowance to workers around the state. The minimum wage is still about 30,000. You and I know that even that alone may not be enough to even take somebody to work and come back if you're doing a distance of about maybe 2 or 3 kilometers to work. So there must be some support in the way people go to work right now. Because the other alternative, which cannot happen on the short-term basis, is for government to roll out a good partnership for federal mass transit or state mass transit, moving to key locations where people transit to work, maybe the state capitals or key local governments and so on. You know, every state knows what happens in their state, where movements happen more often. Before the subsidy removal, we would have studied all of this and say how many buses, the type you have in Lagos, the BRT buses and so on, if you could deploy it in a number of states, the investment may not be too much. If it's well managed, with good partnership, it mustn't be public sector driven. It could be a partnership between the federal government or the state government and some private investors to bring in efficiency. We've done it before.
This transportation thing, yes, we've done it before, and it was actually a proposal in the ERP of the previous government, if you remember. Okay. It was part of the plan.
How come we haven't done it?
Exactly.
That's the thing I'm talking about, insensitivity of government. Okay. If they were sincere to build trust, this plan would have been put in place before you. If you announce subsidy and people can find alternative ways to go to work without spending far too much, we won't complain too much. All I said, if you remember my opening statement, that government pushes all the burden on the people who are already overburdened.
But most of the time, the reason I wanted you to speak about the states is because it would seem like everything is always at the behest of the federal government. We seem to arrogate so much power to the federal government.
Because the money is also in the hands of federal government, and the states only go to beg for money every month.
The state governments, as the president said, begged to get the job. They applied for the job. They know how tasking it is. They campaigned for the job, as the president said. They danced to get the job. Now the job is theirs. Now they have to do so.
Mandate, yeah.
If in the event that, okay, I mean, we are in urban Nigeria, they may not really understand. We may not really understand what the intricacies are there, especially in the light of the, you know, humongous poverty figures that was released last year. What are the, I mean, you've talked about the things, the partnerships that the federal...
Let me give you one suggestion. The state governments and federal government, of course, there are federal workers and state workers. Yeah. Every level of government, even local government workers, there should actually be a kind of conference, called somewhere that states will select people that will go and represent them. Local governments will select people that will represent, where there should be a dialogue between the president and all these guys to agree what can we do. If they need to even begin to make law to adjust the fiscal formula, let them do that. But there must be some, maybe not a salary increase now that will be taxed, but some allowance given for this situation out of the gains of the removal of subsidy. That is step one. Step two for me will include actual palliative, some, what you may call gifts, or some kind of palliative that you can give either in cash form or food fund that we did during COVID. But that must not be done using the formula they have always used in the past. It must be done using state partnerships. The states know the community leaders, they know the village people, they know those who are actually poor. Not government using one kind of formula to come up with names that may be filled with all those conditional, unconditional grants and gifts.
My sincere apologies for butting in. When you talk about politics, I can't take my mind away from 2020. that is the kind of thing you're talking about. But there are a number of other things that I'd like us to speak about, and you've spaded it. Especially in the energy sector. How do we cascade all of that all across Nigeria? You talked about CNG the other time, which is something that a number of people have also spoken about. We'll step up more on that when we return from this break. Just stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Mr. Jodimizwe is still here with us. Well, we're talking about these palliatives and things like that. And we're talking about the responsibility that states themselves have to have. So fortunate that we're running out of time now, but government is asking for time. Asking for patience. And everyone who has spoken about it, including economists such as yourself, are asking that the people should be a little more patient. Labour is having a meeting today with the federal government, all in the bid to say, look, you know what, let's see what government is offering. We have to remove this subsidy. However, it doesn't have to be as painful. What would you be saying to the people? I mean, you've asked that, I mean, government is asking more from the people, but government needs to shed some weight. Speak both ways.
Okay.
What appeal to the people, and then what must government shed now?
Okay, for the people, I don't even know what to tell them, but we should not give up. We shouldn't get depressed. We shouldn't give up. You know, this kind of difficult situation actually brings out the best in us. We must grind harder, work harder, and see if we can afford to make ends meet. It's already very painful. People are hurting. People are dying of hunger. People are begging. People are doing a lot to survive. So crime is going up. People should not go to crime. That cannot solve this problem. People are looking for several ways, you know, to make money, even unethically. So people should just not lose it at this point. They should keep trying. You know, maybe help is on the way. I can see some good signs coming, actually. That over time, like my colleague in Abuja has said, some policies take time before they, like the FX thing, it will take time before they close up. So people should just, you know, persevere further. Nobody wins a race by dropping out. Okay, the only way to survive is to keep tough. Most times, things, the night, you know, it gets darker before the day breaks. So people shouldn't give up. On the part of people, we should continue to persevere. On the side of government, I plead with them. Because, you know, for me, it's an issue of trust. The economy or economics of trust. There has been a damage or, you know, lack of trust over the years. Government will tell you, be patient, I'll do this. It's never done. Government will tell you, we're going to adjust. Nobody has adjusted over the decades. Nigerians are the ones adjusting and adjusting. So I plead with government to do something about the allowance we've announced, we've mentioned, concede something to the NLC. I'm actually quite impressed that Nigerian Labour Congress has not gone crazy to announce the usual strike and then we go crazy. I'm happy that they are dialoguing, but government should not be so hard on them in that dialogue. Okay. Government should look in and see how can we adjust our fiscal spending to enable us squeeze out something to help the people by way of palliative, allowance, and even politicians and big men like some of us to be a bit kinder to our family and community and so on. And government should, lastly, government should please look into the current pricing template for this petroleum. It's been subsidized. I mean, subsidy has been removed. Are we also sure there are no rigidities in the market? Some strong forces are still not trying to make some gains by announcing 488 to 550. Yeah. I wish it was being transparently priced at this moment. I leave that for us to look at.
Sounds like you're giving the NMDPRA their own jobs as well. Oju Demezue, financial and economic analyst, thank you so much for your time this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Chairman, how do you close with Prof?
Well, Prof, some of these TUC's demands are here. I know you did say that they were asking for some palliatives that will cushion the effect. Yeah. And then, yes, they also have long-term and medium-term and some that should be implemented immediately.
Yes.
And I see some of them. You could also reference the ones you've got. Part of which here says that they are asking that government provide subsidy directly for food items. They say the $800 million could be a first step. And then on the medium-term level, deployment of compressed natural gas across the country in line with the earlier promise made by government. The framework and timeline will be developed and agreed by both parties. What kind of impacts do you think this kind of demands will make anyways?
Well, even before the government come to power, this new government, people are not finding things easy. So there's need to actually ask for so much. Palliative have been recommended. Other things have been recommended. But please, it is implementation of some of these palliative that worries people. But before you know it, some of the palliative will find themselves in warehouses belonging to somebody and the goods will go there, just as we witnessed during COVID-19. So how effective will some of these palliatives? Because, yes, Labour can demand for it now. Excellent. But the implementation of it. So what I'm recommending, very important, is that there must be a serious handshake with government agencies, ministry, department, and agencies of the government. They must be able to know that we are now on a new era. Nigeria is designed by God to be very, very great. Despite the problem we are having, we are still the biggest country in Africa. 4 months ago, I was in Egypt, and Egyptians want to trade with Nigeria. Why? Because they said Egypt is the third biggest economy in Africa. Nigeria is the first. If the first and the third actually combined together, we have dominated Africa. But right at home now, we have policy overlap, policy crisis, policy this and that. If we can actually allow the policy implementer, the MDA, to be able to do their jobs as well, so that the border is well monitored, each of the agencies of government do their own part, then these policies, which is expected, as the president said, we give her to the land of promise. I think we are going to get there. But if the implementation is equally faulty, the life of people may continue to actually not be what we wanted. And that is it. Implementation has always been the problem of Nigeria. But clearly speaking, I think the policy of subsidy and other things, the target a very good direction, and that is why the last speaker said that the World Bank, IMF, and other international governance institutions equally support Nigeria. In fact, somebody said that Nigeria may be an emerging very big nation in the world as a result of some of these policy changes. Sorry.
So right now, from where we are, from the trajectory that we've taken, I mean, you said that it doesn't matter if the road is very bumpy. What matters is, are you on the right road? The question now is, what should we do next? What do you think is next along this very bumpy road that we're currently witnessing or experiencing?
Excellent. One of the things, listen to what Labour is bringing, because they represent people that feel the impact of the pinch. They feel it, and therefore listen to them. But just as I said earlier, since government know that when they come to power, they are going to do this, what have they packaged to be able to? So they just open the book. Inside what they are packaged, when they say they are not going to allow subsidies to go, and then let us know and compare that one with what the Labour is saying. And then that's it. But at the same time, I repeat it, some of these good things which the present government wanted, I mean, the way they said it, they can only be done effectively if the implementing agencies, ministries, departments, and agencies of the government, they are not working like before. When you look at it, you discover quite a lot of the problem we are having is because of the lapses in some of these agencies.
All right. All right, Jonathan Raimo is a professor of international economic relations. He's a former acting vice-chancellor, Governor University, and also former acting assistant director of research for the CBN. Thank you for coming on this morning, sir.
Yeah.
Well, we will return and take a look at, well, some political dimension to some of these proposals and policies in just a moment. Do stay on with us.